One-time surefire picks suddenly become a little less desired.
He showed up 9 pounds heavier than he was at the scouting combine. He didn't finish positional drills because he was cramping up and breathing heavily, and he didn't run the 40-yard dash.
It's amazing how much a guy's projected draft position can fluctuate without ever having stepped on a football field for live reps. So today, let's take a look at the 2023 draft class and see which big-name prospects have helped themselves the most, and which have seen their draft stock tank since the season ended. On the rise, Zach Kuntz, Old Dominion. While you might think it's impossible for a 6'7", 255-pound freak athlete of a tight end to fly under the radar, somehow, someway, Zach Kuntz has managed to do just that. However, now that the NFL Combine has come and gone, I think it's safe to say that Kuntz's potential is one of the worst-kept secrets of the draft. Between having his physical measurements written out for the world to see and his insane 40-inch vertical jump, not to mention an impressive 4.55-second 40 time, the 23-year-old is rocketing up draft boards left, right, and center. And I mean, with a Combine showing like that, it's no surprise that the small school stench that has seemed to have fixed itself to Kuntz is now fading. Especially now that the so-called experts have remembered that he was actually a 4-star recruit out of high school and started his collegiate career at Penn State. He just never seemed to find his way into a meaningful role in the offense, largely because of the scheme rather than anything he was doing wrong. And now that NFL teams are beginning to recognize what Kuntz could potentially bring to their offense with a little fine-tuning, he has catapulted into the top 10 tight end rankings on most draft boards. And he can even find himself sneaking in as a day 2 pick come draft weekend. With his freakish athleticism, it wouldn't surprise us one bit. Plummeting, Jalen Carter, Georgia. It's extremely rare to see a player with Jalen Carter's resume and skill set floundering through question marks in the midst of the pre-draft process. To be fair, there are still plenty of folks in and around the league who think he'll be one of the top names called on draft day, but a whirlwind of off-the-field questions has really muddied the waters around what seemed to be a far-gone conclusion. For anyone who was living under a rock, the former Georgia defensive tackle has found himself in hot water for his involvement in a fatal car crash that took the lives of 2 people. There's still a lot of ambiguity around the case, so we'll hold off any real speculation, but what we can say is that the controversy has drastically affected his draft stock. It'll be fascinating to see which teams suddenly decide that they really value redemption and believe in second chances, and decide to scoop up the embattled star. On the rise, Anthony Richardson, Florida. If there ever was a quarterback who was built for the NFL Combine, it was Anthony Richardson. The former University of Florida quarterback is 245 pounds of lean muscle, and at 6'4", has a unique athleticism that few athletes, let alone quarterbacks, possess. His counting numbers in college weren't all that impressive, but I get the feeling that NFL teams are going to be willing to look the other way on that, as they will certainly be tempted by the Cam Newton prototype, only with a 4.43 second 40-yard dash compared to Cam's 4.59, all while possessing Josh Allen-like arm strength. Now, whether or not he can put it together on the field for a complete game, let alone a whole season or even a career, remains to be seen. All I know is that there are few names hotter than that of Anthony Richardson right now, and I would be stunned if he didn't end up going somewhere in the top 5 at this point. Plummeting, Joey Porter Jr., Penn State. At 6'2" and 193 pounds, Porter Jr. has the exact physique NFL general managers are looking for from their cornerbacks nowadays. He has the length to go up and compete for the ball with the freakish wide receivers that now seem to litter NFL fields. And with his 4.46 speed, he should have no problem keeping up with most anyone he matches up with on the outside. There has, however, been a growing sense that he's more sizzle than stick. In large part because folks around the league think his actual ability has been conflated with his NFL pedigree. Because, unfortunately, his flexibility in the defensive secondary is quite limited. He's not a fit to defend in the slot, nor would he be a great fit to play off-man or zone. The general consensus is that with Porter Jr., it is press man or bust. Teams have also cited concerns about his aggressive play style. We may very well see a Trayvon Diggs type of season from him in year 1, in which he makes some exciting interceptions, but also finds himself getting burnt on all sorts of double moves. Beyond that, there's also an increased concern around his technical ability that scouts seem to believe was masked by his elite athleticism compared to his peers in the college game. Porter Jr. has a tendency to rely on his hands downfield to corral his man a little too often, and that will get called on him in the pros over and over again, which could spell disaster for his confidence and ultimately shatter his entire strategy as a corner. When a team takes a cornerback in the first round, particularly in the top half of the round, the return on investment that they are expecting is significant. They need a guy who will come in and be a plus contributor right off the bat. And, well, folks are becoming more and more bearish that Porter Jr. is that guy. On the rise, McClendon Curtis, Chattanooga. McClendon Curtis is, in many ways, the polar opposite case compared to Joey Porter Jr. First of all, his name carries zero pedigree and lacks any sort of notoriety or recognition. In lieu of a storied program like Penn State, Curtis played his college ball at Tennessee Chattanooga, and he did so on their offensive line. And perhaps more importantly, his draft stock is actually on the rise, unlike Porter's. Heading into this draft, the perception was that Curtis was probably going to be a day 3 selection, but his strong showing at the Senior Bowl and at the Combine, during which he ran the 40 in 5.24 seconds as a 6'6", 320-plus pounder, has his stock on the rise. So much so that the Arizona Cardinals have used one of their top 30 visits on him, which, considering their restricted nature, is a significant resource to invest. While this could have been a smokescreen, that would be rare considering how low Kurt's draft prospects were to begin with. Now that this news is broke, it'll be fascinating to see where and on what day the versatile O-lineman ultimately ends up getting taken. Plummeting, Tank Dell, Houston. There's no denying what Tank Dell accomplished at the collegiate level. Not only did he successfully make the leap from Alabama A&M to Houston via the JUCO, a journey that, by the way, was chronicled in part by the popular show Last Chance U, but once Dell arrived in Houston, he became one of the most prolific receivers in the college game. Although he has all the burst needed at the NFL level, people are becoming increasingly concerned about his fragility, a la Devontae Smith. The difference, however, between him and the Alabama product is that while Dell is quick, he doesn't quite have the breakaway speed, and both his hands and catch radius project to be a class below Smith. After the season he put up, he had all sorts of first-round bluster swirling around him. But it looks like he'll now end up being taken somewhere in the middle of day 2, or maybe even day 3 if things go haywire. On the rise, Zay Flowers, BC. Despite setting records left, right, and center at Boston College, including the school's all-time receiving record, the 5'9" Zay Flowers seemed to find himself drawing a rather disappointing amount of first-round buzz. People repeatedly, and unfairly, I might add, anchored him to Andy Isabella's comps. Though they are around the same size and both play their college ball in the state of Massachusetts, that is hardly a reliable mechanism for evaluating a player, at least as far as I'm concerned. Scouts, however, have started to take a more nuanced approach, and Flowers' tape has solidified him as a first-round pick. He has truly elite agility and body control, which allows him to evade tacklers, run crisp routes, and make insane adjustments when hauling in the ball. And with his 4.42 speed, he can reliably take the top off an NFL defense if given the chance. Look for him to go somewhere in the 20s now, rather than the 2nd or 3rd round. I would be shocked to see him fall that far. Plummeting, Siaki Ika, Baylor. The 6'3", 335-pound defensive tackle out of Baylor's massive frame had been drawing a lot of attention from NFL scouts, but much of the excitement around Ika has hushed up lately. This can be attributed to a couple of things. For starters, his 5.39 second 40 at the Combine raised questions about whether his athleticism would actually cut it at the NFL level. And perhaps more importantly, his length, or lack thereof, was brought to the forefront, meaning he lacks both the speed to get to the quarterback and the ability to disrupt passing lanes, as well as wrangle ball carriers to the ground. Don't be surprised if Siaki Ika ends up falling all the way back to day 3 at this point. On the rise, Keanu Benton, Wisconsin. Keanu Benton, the defensive tackle out of Wisconsin, is quietly becoming one of the hottest names in the draft due to his skill set and work ethic. The momentum for the 6'4", 315-pound monster of a man has been building since the stretch run of the college football season, which he ended on an absolute tear. A culmination of the growth he's shown since he's all but forced his way into Wisconsin's radar as a 3-star recruit coming out of high school. For all that power and size that he possesses, which bodes well for him as a run stuffer at the next level, Benton is a fairly dynamic athlete too. Something that has been attributed to his wrestling background. Not to mention his length, which should help him disrupt opposing passing games as well. He went from being a draft afterthought to now being a guy projected to be picked on the early side of day 2, maybe even the early second round. Plummeting, Max Duggan, TCU. Though he had a magical final year at TCU, the excitement is starting to fade around former Horned Frogs QB Max Duggan. When he and TCU were flying atop the college football rankings, people seem to forget, at least for a moment, that Duggan was on the very fringe of even being draftable. And he did the unthinkable in leading the Horned Frogs to the national championship. But what happened in that game against Georgia was a humbling reminder that even at the highest level of college football, that there is a huge gap between the top NFL-ready talent and everyone else. Georgia exposed the flaws in his game, and his stock has only continued to drop since then. We might see a team take a flyer on him in the 6th or 7th round, but even that would be a bit of a surprise to me at this point. But which prospects do you think are making the biggest moves up or down NFL draft boards this offseason? Join us in the comment section below. If you liked this video and learned a thing or two, clicking the like button helps out a ton. And hey, we appreciate it. If this is your first time coming around to TPS though, subscribing is a great idea because we put out videos like this every single day. But as always, thanks for watching and we'll see you guys next time.